I have an idea. Let's talk about speed painting. Speed painting. It's a wide category and it can mean different things to different people. Of course, there's more than one way to crack an egg, as they say. It's at the core of it, though, I see speed painting as a formulaic approach to a pleasable result versus the more painterly kind of touch and go balancing back and forth. This is a more mathematical approach, or at least in this instance. You know, outside of actually just moving your body faster to paint fast, there are some techniques and tricks that you can use to get a pleasable result in a decent amount of time. So the goal today is to create a paint job that I like in under 30 minutes. I do this all the time. I've painted a lot of Zombicide models. The survivors are a wide, unique cast of characters. Always fun to work on. I'll do this to kind of break up some of the more monotonous and lengthy paint jobs that I have in front of me. It's good to just kind of shake the dust off with a little bit of speed painting once in a while. So today, for our subject matters, I have a couple of survivors from Zombicide Black Plague. We have Rocco, as well as Thomas. And from this point forward, we'll let the brush do the talking. Kick it. We've got these two characters from Zombicide Black Plague. And to start things off, I'm just going to airbrush a gradient down, a sepia tone with some battlefield brown. Got that zenithal base coat down. Sure, it'll all be covered up in the end, but it still helps. So get these guys sauced up with a little bit of that deeper brown. And next up, once that brown base coat was properly dry, I'm going to go in with some Guncore brown and just airbrush it downward. I want to maintain this zenithal angle so I can take advantage of the three-dimensional aspects of the figure. Sort of leading the eye upwards, we're getting this nice sepia undertone, just going to help later when we're glazing on top of all these dimensions. And just for saturation's sake, we'll go back and hit them one more time. Always maintaining that same angle. Top down. Okay, in the final stage, we'll go in with some olive flesh from Monument. It's just a very light ivory. And think of this as kind of like a temperature gauge. I just want the focus on the upper portions of the model. Just very lightly up on top, kind of leading the eye upwards with the graduating brightness. Let's do that straight top down. Decent. Give him that headshot as well. Not too shabby. For the next step, what I did was go in and edge highlight all of these details, kind of throw a line on all the upward facing angles. And I'll be using that same ivory uniformly. You see I'm just adding some saturation, a little bit of sharpness to these details. I'm not going crazy with it. Just on those upward facing angles, I'll lay down a swipe. I know this model in particular has a lighter set of clothes underneath his deep maroon tunic, so I know I want his leg and his exposed arm to be just a little bit brighter. And this is important because as I go on, I'll be laying down some wash-like coats. If not, wash or contrast paint, whatever I choose, it's going to be a tinted version, a glazy copy of that color. So I want to make sure that all of these edges, these prominent details, are going to be showing through that glossy, that glaze-like coat, whatever I'm watering it down with. And yes, this is comparable to the sketch style. It's definitely what I'm doing, is kind of undertoning everything, similar to the Grizel style in found in watercolor. Once the sepia tone is all laid down and I'm happy with it, just kind of check my volumes. Decent. I mean, this isn't supposed to be a showstopper of any kind. I mixed up a few tones to glaze over the various elements on the model. I've got my acrylic retardant, my dry time extender, my distilled water over to the side. I'm going to mix up a very wash-like consistency. I'll take some of that off the brush on the paper towel, but all I'm aiming to do is just glaze over the details of the model. Using this paint as a filter, see, everything else still shows through. All those gradients, see how much that ivory has been dulled down. That's why we made sure to bring it up nice and bright. And it also is going to fall into the crevices and help tint things in that direction. And we'll sweep it on the front of his belly. We'll also get his cape here. Remember, just keep moving in the same direction. I'm just unrolling a sheet of tint over these tones. If it seeps into the crevices, well, that's better for me. But if it winds up on top of these highlights, I want to make sure to sweep it away from them. Sweep it down into those depths. And we'll get his oh so stylish hood as well. Sometimes if I have a heavy amount in one area, I will go back and grab it with my brush, keep spreading it out. Instead of adding more to the situation, the issue may be that it's just not spread out thin enough. Decent. Now his robes, it's kind of like a purplish tone in there, so I've got some mahogany from Monument Paints and just a little bit of beaten purple from P3. Again, we'll kind of test that out. Just add a little bit of tone to his friar's robe here. I'll also go with the ivory, and he has this brighter area around his collar, so I'll make sure that I bring that up. That's kind of another rule to break. Generally we're washing everything down, making it darker, but it's kind of counterintuitive to lay paint down on wash a bright color into the crevices. It's just going to highlight our shadows, and we mustn't have that. So I've got some of this maroon tone from P3. Sweep that onto his garb here. And just for sake of variety, he's got these dark tones mixed up, but I want his hair to be a different black than the kind of blue black that I've been using. So we'll just use a straight up Vallejo black. Glaze it over his lovely, lovely hair. A lot of volume, a lot of boost. I like it. Gotta have priorities when you're surviving out there, you know. So when Rocco was fleeing the horde, he sure did not forget his comb. And he's better for it. Okay, dried and ready. All set for their bath in strong tone. So I'm just going to get some water on my brush, take a healthy dose of strong tone. I've also base coated the silvers, but the metallics, we'll get to that a little bit later. All over the entire model, throwing down this brown wash. I'm using a brown wash because it's connecting itself, connecting these colors to the base tone, you know, that original ivory gradient that we laid down. Take a big old brush, just make sure that you're getting into every crack and crevice so you've got an even surface tension as it dries. This paint's going to dry and start to pull at itself a little bit, so just make sure that it's an even pull. Some areas I was able to just leave with that ivory and tan base coat because it was wood. You could use any kind of wash you want for this, whatever works for you. I like the Army Painter washes. Contrast would be another great candidate for this. I think it could do a lot of things with this undercoat. It's going to make sure it's not pooled up too much in any areas. Decent. Give Rocco his bath as well. And this kind of helps to add a bit of richness to these thin and washed out colors. Just a little bit of definition. Toned out and ready to rock. The next thing I want to do is lay down some black lining in order to define some of the more major details. I'll water down a little bit of black and just where there are some seams, like where the hands are gripping the weapon here, or maybe the by the wrist in the sleeve. Very lightly lay down a black line. See, I'm kind of dragging the brush, pulling it in a certain direction. This will just help me to add a little bit of extra definition, and it's up to your own discretion just how crazy you feel is necessary with this. How wild you want to go. I'm just picking out some of the more major details, some of the areas I feel are blending together a little bit too much. Maybe where right along his belt line here. And while I'm at it, I will acknowledge the weaponry here. I'll just glaze some black on top of the silver just to control where the shine is happening. Now screw it, I can just do a series of lines like this too. It doesn't need to be the most perfect take. Maybe I'll get a kind of unique appearance out of that. Just want to add some dimension to this lovely sculpted hedge he has. This flawless boosted hair. Next on the agenda would be a series of highlights. Mainly, I'm going to be reapplying the ivory tones. Pretty much where I placed them before. I'm using that as my guide, but I'm not completely covering up the previous layer. In some cases, I'll be switching colors. If I'm highlighting something that's black, I'll mix up a gray, or something that's intended to be, you know, a light ivory color or something, have some white pulled off to the side. But mainly I'll go through with this olive flesh and just start picking out, you know, some tiny dots and slashes. Just here and there. Some of these corners, you know, some of the sharper edged details. And place, you know, very small amounts, kind of adding extra bits of texture where I'd like to. Once I was satisfied with that, it was time to attend to the bases. Just some quick wet blending. I'll use this olive flesh, touch of the ochre. Swat that around in the frontal area. I'll go down to Guncorpse Brown as I get towards the middle. And then a touch of black at the rear. Just a small amount. Let's add a little more ivory up front. Take a touch of white, stipple it in there. Then I'll grab some black. I'm just trying to match the play surface for the Zombicide game. So I'll draw some kind of brickwork here and there. I'll just imply that there's a little bit of a cobblestone. And I don't mind if it's messy, that's fine. A nice tabletop result is all I'm after. Something that looks passable and maybe even just a little bit cooler. And then we'll pull in one more highlight onto the face. I threw a little bit of a flesh wash down from Army Painter. I'm just going to add some flesh tone together with a little bit of white and ivory one more time. Just give them a little touch just to bring up that T-zone. And then it was time to pop them off and run a little ring around the rim of the base. Take some black and Guncore Brown. Nice and thick. Just controlling the angle. Sweep it around the base. Alright, and then the final touch was to add some silver highlights. Straight up using silver from Vallejo. Just on the metallic areas. And I saved this for the time after the dull coat, the matte finish, just so these metallics shine a little bit brighter. The majority of the paint job is still protected. Yeah, this will help just kind of give those metallics an extra little bump. And there they be. You could certainly take this a little bit further, enhancing this foundation with a little bit of layering, blending, you know, saturation to kind of fluff up some of these colors. I pull my punches on these models, and there may be one or two elements that I feel like I want to be a little more detailed. You know, if they have a magical weapon or a particularly fancy cape, or it's a wizard or something, you know, I might go and enhance it a little bit. But what we've seen today is just the most basic foundation. Feel free to take this and do whatever you want with it. This is underpainting at the core of things, so laying down a textured pass, you know, kind of a monochromatic even tone, and then glazing over that with an ink wash or something. You can get some really unique results on a variety of surfaces. So it never ends with just the subject matter. There's always more ways to apply this in other projects down the road. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate all the support, and I'll see you all next time.